Hello, you're watching Business Live. Our top story this Monday, oil prices are sliding lower than $28 a barrel as investors weigh up the lifting of sanctions against Iran. Well, for Iran, of course, the economic gains could be immense. For everyone else, particularly those oil producers, that fall in the price of oil is hitting their budgets hard. More on that for you later.
Now, new technology and the internet has changed the way firms advertise and target consumers thanks to social media and web apps rather than traditional newspapers and billboards.
Yeah, but one thing that hasn't changed up until now is how many firms pay for it. They traditionally pay money in return for advertising space, but now that is apparently changing too.
Well, in the UK alone, it's estimated that companies are likely to spend nearly $25 billion on advertising just this year.
So, a growing practice to offset that whopping cost is something called media bartering. It means that a company will provide goods or services, usually whatever they actually produce themselves, in exchange for a proportion of the advertising bill.
Astus Group is a leader in this field with nearly half of the market in the UK, which is said to be worth around $583 million, and many leading global brands as clients. Well, Francis Dickens is Chief Executive of Astus and with us in the studio. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
We sort of briefly explained how this media bartering works, but could you just add a bit more meat on the bone, as it were?
Yeah, sure. Well, as you partly explained, when brands want to advertise their goods or services, one of the biggest costs that they will face is actually the media spends, whether that's television, radio, print, or even digital. And what media barter does, it's a process that's evolved over the last 20 years to allow those companies to lower the cost of that advertising by paying for part of their advertising, their own goods and services. Because lots of companies will have capital tied up, either in unsold goods or services that they're yet to provide. You've got media owners, on the other hand, who always want to get more share. They might want to attract new clients and make it as competitive to them as possible. And what the media barter agency does is connect those two, so that each of them gets what they want, but without having to pay 100% cash for it.
What sort of things could you barter? Because it strikes me, if you produce something that's actually really useful to that other company, that they can maybe use in their office space or whatever, that is quite useful. But what if you produce something that's quite niche? How do you find a market for it?
Well, for starters, it isn't a direct swap, because we will take the product that's being offered and then we will move that on according to what the client has asked us to do with it. So the media owner doesn't necessarily take the product from the person they're taking the advertising from. So that's the first difference. And you know what, generally we can find a use for almost anything. We have bartered a huge range of things in the last 10 years. So
give us some examples. What are the weirdest things you've had to barter?
Oh, I knew you were going to ask me something like that. Well, I would say not the weirdest thing, but probably one of the most challenging things was some little ceramic bowls that had been produced very particularly for a food manufacturer, and of course we had to find a completely alternate use for them. We also early on, we took some cars that were in the UK market, but they were like mini-mokes, so they had no roof, no doors, and they were entirely practical for the UK weather. But we managed to find a home for those as well. So.
And why would a big global player, some of the big brands that are your clients, want to go for this process as opposed to just going to a traditional advertising agency and doing it the normal way? Just pay the bill, get the advertising. Simple.
Well, yeah, well, we always work alongside the media agency, so they're still using the media agency and they will still select the media and negotiate as usual. But our bit is to set up this arrangement where they can pay partly in product. It might be about reducing the cost of the advertising, because obviously by using their own product, they do that. It might be about getting products out there. Again, coming back to a car, we've launched several new cars just by getting them out on the road early. Or it might be about clearing stock that they've discontinued or they don't want it anymore and they want us to get rid of it.
And you're going to expand into China. No one's doing this in China yet, and you've just got a license.
Yep.
How do you expect this to take off? Because people have to be educated as to how it works, don't they? Do you have any sense of whether they're ready for this kind of thing? I
think we've spent 2 years researching on this, because obviously you don't get a licence in China overnight, so we've spent 2 years covering the ground. We know the media owners want to do it. We have clients that we're already working with in the UK and in Australia who want us to work with them over there, which is what has been one of the big drivers to go there. And the agencies want it, so we've got all three parties saying yes please, and we know the Chinese are very entrepreneurial and I love working with them, so I'm very optimistic about it.
And how much is this driven by a change in the industry? We alluded to it in the introduction that social media has changed how the advertising industry works and how you target consumers, and you can get a specific payback for a certain consumer rather than big mass market advertising. I'd imagine this really steps into that quite neatly because it allows people to target people more specifically rather than just handing over a lot of cash for big wide-scale publicity.
Yeah, I agree, and also fragmentation is really good for us because it gives us more opportunities to work with people. We've run digital campaigns for thousands of pounds for clients, all part of the deal, so it doesn't have to be big brands we're working with, and social media is a very good opportunity for us.
All right, thank you so much for coming in, Francis. It's been fascinating to hear about the company, and we'll watch how you get on in China.
Thank you.